Hello, hello. Today is March 30th, 2011, and this is Day 9 Daily number 279. I will adjust you. There we go. So now I am front and center. Perfect. Today, unfortunately, is not the greatest of days. As it turns out, a fine individual by the name of Alpha Meridian, one of the head moderators over at Ars Technica for 11 years in their gaming section, passed away, and he was a viewer of the Daily. So I just want to begin by extending my hearts to him and all his wonderful co-workers. Well, of course, anyone who helps support the gaming community kicks ass. So if you're ever looking for something to do, just go out and help spread and evangelize how amazing gaming is, as good old Alpha Meridian did indeed do. So with that said, let us then state a little bit about what we're going to be learning today as we progress into the depths of StarCraft II learnedness. There's something that, I actually bash on a little bit too much, which is just standard play. And all that stuff. You always hear me say the following thing, right? You always hear me say, oh, everyone's always talking about playing standard. No one ever talks about playing their own style, about learning their own thing. And as much as I do that, there's kind of a reason why some things are standard, right? Why some styles of play are considered very typical. For instance, having fewer robotics facilities than gateways. That is standard. It's not very usual to have a 2-gateway, 7-robo mix in there. And a lot of times it might seem like I'm advocating the crazy and unorthodox stuff. So what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be taking a look at TLO versus Hasuobs, a recent match that was played, and we're just going to kind of ooh and awe at standard. Because I think that people have the following perception of what it means to be standard versus what it means to be unorthodox. So in standard, it's kind of like, these are the units that I build, and these are the times I expand, and this is when I get these upgrades. And it's almost as though you are obeying the rules of standard. You know, you're almost obeying what you think you're supposed to do. A very, very easy example. In Terran vs. Zerg, you end up expanding at some point along the lines, and you have 3 barracks making Marines, 1 factory making tanks, and right when your stim finishes, that's when you move out to attack, because that's what the standard says for you to do. And when you finish combat shield, that's when you move out to attack, because that's what standard says. And, you don't do any drops. You don't do any drops with this play, because you know what? That's not standard. And I have to play standard. And the real tragedy of this is that a lot of times there are very clear times when it's correct to attack and you should be attacking, and if you don't attack, it's bad, but people say, no, 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 that would be non-standard. If anything ever feels kind of icky and gross, you should definitely adjust it and play in the style that you want. But what I want to take a look at is the idea of what you can do with standard and what you can... What lets you do things a little bit more, right? What little tiny edges can you end up executing? Because what we're going to see here in Hasuobs' play is he's going to do things that might look a little bit unusual, but are absolutely allowed by the fact that he's playing really, really, really standard. So let me give some extreme contrasts, right? For the moment, I want you to completely forget what standard is and what unorthodox is. I want you to completely and totally forget this. Good. Picture a Terran player making only Marines. And that's it. Whole game long, all he's making is Marines. If for some reason you see, I don't know, let's say his main is very undefended. Like inside his main. He has his natural, but his main is undefended. You can't really exploit that. What if he, let's say, built a geyser that you could shoot with a tank? You can't really abuse that because you are only making Marines. So we're going to be looking a lot at the little tiny abuses Hasuobs is going to be doing, because it's so important that when you're playing standard, you have this idea in the back of your head of, man, there's like a lot of stuff that I am allowed to do and capable of doing. Let me see. I really wanted to relate this back to Brood War because that is where I can make the best examples, but sadly, you're all StarCraft II players. Ugh. So what I'm going to do is, before we go into this Protoss vs. Terran between Hasuobs and TLO, I want to describe standard play in Zerg vs. Terran, because that is something where people will sense a lot more fluidity. Where, let's just take Muta Baneling Zergling. Anytime there are no units at the front of his base. You can swing on around for a counterattack. Exactly what we saw in Sen versus Marine King Prime. Not standard typical, because counterattacking does not have exact times in general matchups, but you know what? With Mutalisks, Banelings, and Zerglings, just by getting those, if you suddenly put yourself in Decision Maker mode instead of trying to obey the imaginary rules mode, you can do counterattacks with those Zerglings. What if he is doing, he's powering a little bit too hard and building up? Well, you can get Burrow for those Banelings, a little tiny thing to add in there, and you can plant them around. You can take more expansions. You can use your Mutalisks to constantly be harassing. You can have your Mutalisks and Zerglings as one pack, isolating and picking all sorts of stuff off. You're hearing a lot about unit movement and cool decision making. That's exactly what I want to implant in your mind as we go into this game between Hasuobs and TLO. I know I removed the sound, and I just want to note for the record, if you hit Control W, you can remove the whole interface. Isn't that awesome? Oh, yeah, that's awesome. And of course, by trying to show off my fancy tricks, I successfully showed off how long the replay time was. So we're going to go ahead and pop off that camera mode. We're going to be taking a good, nice look at what Hasuobs is going to be doing early on. And what I want to talk about is all the obvious junk that is so easy to overlook. We're going to be talking about all the great, glorious, wonderful opportunities that these things allow you to do in an action sense, and not worry so much about the reaction ideas. And that's actually an idea I want to come back to a little bit as we see this probe scout. People have been hearing me a lot lately, especially in like the State of the Game podcast I did last night, talk about the idea of action mode versus reaction mode. And I think a lot of the reason why, actually this is so freaking important, I might even have to pause and show this guy's face for a little bit. Might have to be all about this guy. Yeah, you know what, let's go into that. Now, I'm sure many of you have had the following. Whenever you do whatever the hell you want, it feels good. Even if you lose, you kind of have this, it feels pretty nice feeling. And whenever you're trying to obey the laws of standardists, it feels terrible. You kind of lose, and it feels like, oh, maybe I just need a macro better. It feels murky, and there doesn't feel like that many solutions. The problem is, because so many people do the standards, and because there's so much literature written, and there's so many resources that are there, it's very easy to think about the reaction mode of everything. If I go for a standard 3-gate opening, then I can defend proxies like this, I can deal with Hellions like this, I can defend against this like this. It's all about how do I defend and stay alive versus all its possibilities. And now I just want you to think for a moment. Like, I want all you, okay, all you Protoss players out there, I want you to pretend, I want you to think about all the crazy strategies you've ever come up with, like maybe Dark Templar rushes, and all the Zergs who are out there doing all their Infestor or their Nidus Worm stuff, or all the Terran players out there trying to do their Reapers and their nukes. Notice the theme that comes up anytime you're inventing this creative sort of stuff. It's almost always an action mode strategy. Almost always. Hell, on Fun Day Monday, I told people to go nuke rushing, right? And some guy got 2 ghosts with cloak very, very quickly, went up and EMP'd the guy's command center and then nuked it, so that way he didn't have any scans. That is a really cool timing attack and a really sweet execution. That is action. It's you doing something to the other player. Reapers jumping everywhere. It's action. You're thinking of when to harass. Even Nidus Worm, you're doing stuff at the opponent. It's because anytime you're being active and doing action against your opponent, it's really messing him up and forcing him to make tough decisions. And then I want you to think about all the standard play that you do. And also, oh, it's all defensive and everything. Never when you come up with an orthodox or an unorthodox strategy is it something like, well, maybe I can build Reapers and use them to just defend. No one does that, right? No one does that. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. What I'm saying is there's this intuition that I think everyone has, which is that I need to just be action-y. I need to put pressure on him. I need to hurt him. I need to have options. I need to exploit them, and I need to make him feel like he doesn't have options. But when most people play standard, they let go of that intuition and just try to glom on to what I'm supposed to do. So what we're going to slowly end up seeing here is a lot of opportunities arise. So let's go ahead and look at this in terms of what options this allows us to do. So we're going to see some come up real soon here. We're going to see Hasuobs get into TLO's base, and what does he see? He sees a barracks, he sees a command center, he sees a gas geyser, and nothing too noteworthy. There's the cybernetics core coming out right now. And we're going to see a Zealot pop out. There we go. Now, in terms of reaction mode of standards, I'm sure a lot of people just obey the fact that, yes, many Gosus get a Zealot. I want to be Gosu too. I'm going to get a Zealot. So they will say things like, this Zealot helps if he, has a proxy here, and this is good when he does early Marine Marauder pressure. That helps me defend against that. But what not a lot of people will say is, you know what, you can take this first Zealot, and you can attack with him, if the conditions are right. Hey, there's a sentry coming out. We're going to end up with this warp gate. But you know what? This probe that built this very prettily placed pylon, a lot of times you can poke with this probe and a Zealot and realize, yeah, I could actually attack that. In fact, one of the most potent openings in the universe, this is going to sound silly, but one of the most potent openings ever is the following. Zealot, Stalker, Stalker, Nexus, and then more gateways. The Zealot Stalker opening, just pushing with those 3 units, kills a lot of Terran openings. And I don't mean wins you the game immediately, but it really Fs up a significant portion of Terran openings if the Terran isn't careful. Especially a lot of these Marine-focused defenses as they're getting their factory garbage running. With the 3 units from 1 gateway while expanding. No one talks about that enough. People talk about the Zealot and the Stalker to help stay alive and do all this stuff. But action mode, action, doing all the sorts of pressure that we want to be doing. So we do see Hasuobs getting a pretty early second gateway. There's a Stalker popping out right now. I would have preferred to see a gateway get thrown down, because what we're going to see is right when the Stalker finishes, or right when the sentry finishes, we would have had enough money to do it anyways. Yep, see, there's a little Stalker going down, and we have enough money for a gateway. It is not a problem. So we're seeing from Hasuobs at this point in time. I'm going to switch between calling them Hasuobs and Hasuobs because I just am indecisive. Now, this is actually a pretty interesting moment. This probe got harassed a little bit. A few things shot at it. And immediately, Hasuobs begins to do the move out. Ooh. And you'll notice that what we're seeing is 2 gateways. We're not seeing a robo. We're not seeing a 3 gateway pressure. We're not seeing any other tech. We're not seeing a citadel. So we're just seeing 2 gates worth of stuff. Now, because this is a Protoss play, and you'll start to see what it means to prepare for a daily, I want you to consider the following 3 things. And now you're going to see exactly why I chose a Protoss. Haha. Consider a 1 gateway opening, a 2 gateway opening, and a 3 gateway opening. Ha! Notice how that even corresponded with the fingers in my hand. Yes. People will tend to say something like a 1 gateway opening, super economically focused, right? A 3 gateway open, ooh, he might be trying to do a lot of aggression in the middle. But we're in 2 gateway opening land. A lot of people who are saying, play standard, will be like, what, that's too safe. That's too safe, you're delaying your expansion. Or, oh, you don't have enough gateways up. But let's see how Hasuobs ends up playing this out. I wanted to just briefly note that. And see what's so nice about the fact that this is a Protoss player is the fact that I can do the 1 gateway versus 2 gateway versus 3 gateway comparison. Now, we're already seeing some really good smart stuff by Hasuobs. Just pull back a little bit. We're starting to see a lot more active presence of his units in the map. Look at this nice little cup in the middle. The probe here poaching on the left. We have a kind of a hidden pylon doing a little bit of spotting, but in particular this part of the circle, given by this Xel'Naga watchtower, is giving him complete coverage of the map. And again, some more nice unit control, just very typically juicy stuff from Hasuobs. Morph into a gateway! There it is. There's your warp gates going down. We see the units beginning to scoot across. And this is the sort of good unit movement that is going to help a ton. When people tend to look at this player, when they tend to look at a player like Hasuobs play and they see something like this, over time, I think a lot of people will just label this as something standard. There's nothing nuts about this, right? There's nothing. It's not like he went 1 gate, gas, expand, gas, cybernetics core, and then to Dark Templar, and he was able to make 50 million sentries. It's not crazy by any sense. And whenever things become less crazy, people just go into the, I will obey the rules that Hasuobs is doing. What food is it? 39. I will now attack when it's 39 food. But I want you to break free of that and look at your standard play and try to think a ton more. with the units that you've just been given. Like, lots of thinking. If your units are sitting still in your base, I don't want it to be because you can't think of anything better to do with them. I want it to be because you thought to yourself, should I move out? Definitively no, because of reasons X, Y, and Z. Notice that this probe hanging onto the left side, the cup of vision that was here just moments ago, all this timing is very, very... it's good timing in general, but in particular there's a lot of spotting going on, a lot of checking. He's just gently trying to determine modes of aggression, scooting that zealot up to the front. And notice that was like really good timing on the sentry. I don't even think that was a reaction. He just, clearly threw that one thing down. Now, as we see, TLO is kind of doing a pretty typical early expand style and this sort of jazz. And this is one of the delights of standard play, is that there are a lot of opportunities to attack. Like right now, just having a few gateway units running up. What if there's a bunker there? We just pull right on back. We can pull right on back, but we saw that there's a small amount of units, so you know what? We're going to go up here, we're going to push back a little bit, we're going to target this tech lab. This is getting pretty darn creative, and we're going to pick off some SCVs. Ooh. Back in the base, everything is pretty typical. Getting a second gas, great, good stuff. Poking up again, continuing to try to do a little bit of damage. And this kind of aggression is what you see players absolutely never ever do whenever they are doing standard stuff. You see the player who only goes for the big Colossus ball every time, and what does he do? Well, he just sits on his ass until he has Colossus. But now all of a sudden, notice this. We have some more zealots popping out. Ooh, we're getting a robotics facility. No, screw the robotics facility, we're getting 2 gateways. Now, this is an incredible treat that we're seeing Hasuobs do right now. An incredible treat. Because he is demonstrating my favorite principle in early game logic. Scouting the front. Rarely ever will you get the chance to be an observer and be like, what is in his base? Dun-na-na, 4 barracks. Rarely will you ever get the chance to do that. But you'll always get a chance to poke up at the front. And what did we see there? Well, we got the chance to see a command center, some Marines and Marauders. So immediately, why would we need a robo? We don't need observers. I mean, we can choose to get a robo to get Colossus and choose to get the Immortals. But I mean, if a guy's going Banshee, then we really do need a robo. In this game, we just don't need that. So Hasuobs now has the option, because of the pressure that he did, because of the flexibility of very, very standard plays, to be able to elect to get more gateways. And again, continue to note the active decision-making of where these units go. Right now, all of them are just kind of moving forward. In that first battle that Hasuobs pushed at the front of TLO, not that much was lost. I mean, the Zealots ended up falling down. We're seeing some more sentries get pooped out. But it wasn't any sort of all-in attack. It was a poke and a pull. And now look at this very gentle poking and prodding as he's trying to dart up. Again, would love to attack that tech lab, but notice he's pulling only the stalkers. He's being very, very mindful. And this is the thing that you just do not see a lot of players who are playing standardly. I mean, come on, guys. Early expand with a Nexus, 4 gateways. I mean, this is just by-the-book, run-of-the-mill mixes in terms of structures. I mean, come on. Come on, you guys. Jeez. Guys. So normal. But see, this poking is him taking his build and getting really creative. And here is, again, this is the little stuff that I love. Recognizing that in this positioning, a force field here is an excellent way to cut that off. And then we see the target firing there, and indeed he does pick off the tech lab as a result of that pressure. And then he can force field the ramp if he so pleases. But we're seeing more Zealots, more sentries get churned out. Hasuobs suffering a little bit of the run and retreat damage, but there's not really that much from TLO at this point in time. And the net result of all this is in the unit counting station, we see a lot of probes more on planet Hasuobs. So suddenly, as we approach the 9-minute mark, I want to recap the very, very cool set of decision-making that we saw Hasuobs do. Obviously, there's a battle where we get the chance to see yet again that gateway units in pretty much any number are very, very good. This ends up getting lost. How tragic. But, and I will note that Hasuobs actually has a little bit more money than he should. Actually, a lot bit more money. You know, if this were you, I'd probably be like, yeah, it's a little bit more. But for Hasuobs, who's like a super duper pro, I want to be like, Hasu, guys, those sonar minerals! I want to freak out and give him the finger. Yeah, take that. But I mean, still, this is a thinking player playing Standard. This is a thinking player making active decisions while doing a normal structure. A lot of it involves pressuring. A lot of it involves this gentle move forward and move back and that sort of thing. And it's actually kind of funny because I think this harkens back to a lot of the evolution of micromanagement in the original Brood War, which had insane micro. For any of you who did not play the original Brood War, each unit individually had its own incredibly unique way that you had to control it. Like, really, really unique. I mean, like, Marauders, run and shoot and run and shoot. Marines, run and shoot and run and shoot. You know, those things kind of have a similar-ish feel. Stalkers kind of run and shoot, but I mean, in Brood War, you had to hit hold position for some units, you had to hit patrol for others, you had to do at 30-degree angle clicking instead of 10-degree because it would cause a unit to do something different. It was nuts. It was very, very crazy. Why do I bring all of this up? Because a funny thing happened in Brood War where you started to see people not really control their units. And then there was a big spike up in their control of units over time, right? A lot of people began doing some crazy micro, and then it just kind of dipped back down to where it is. It actually peaked up and moved back down. In other words, a lot of people began over-microing. Whenever a unit is not moving, it is... Whenever a unit is not moving, it's not shooting. So a lot of people will look at an army and say, it's correct not to move this army. Super crazy veterans who'd had like 12 years experience and have gone through that phase of microing too much, they will look at their units and say, nope, don't want to micro. Here comes a chance where maybe I'll have to micro. No, it's better for me not to do that. They look lazy, but in reality, they're having incredible amount of lightning decisions where do nothing is the active decision they're making. And it's kind of funny because this relates exactly back to this idea that's happening in Standard play, where, let's take, for instance, me watching In Control's stream a lot of times, where he'll pretty much kind of do this, and then just pull back, and then hang out, then do a huge Colossus push. And then I watch 5 more games, and all he does all those games is move forward, no, move back, sit, huge Colossus ball. But suddenly in Game 6, In Control moves out, looks, and then just starts attacking. And then starts attacking here and there and there and there, and now all of a sudden he's really in his opponent's face. And it's so important that you note that in all 5 of those games that you just saw, it's not, oh, gonna sit passively, just because that's what I was told to do. It's a lot of, is this a good time to attack? No. Okay, here's another window where I should attack. Let me check his unit count. Nope, don't want to attack then. And now here's the 3rd time. No, I'm still going to be waiting for those Colossus. So this is really, really cool, this opening we're seeing from Hasuobs, where there's some intuitive decisions that are being made building-wise, related directly to some of the control we're seeing. And here's Hasuobs, again, getting a little bit in his opponent's face. Very good stuff. And of course, everyone loves TLO. How can you not love TLO? But TLO is a little bit more of a non-standard player. Hasuobs is very much so a standard player. Very, very much so a standard, by-the-book, run-of-the-mill, dooter. So you know what? Still engaging in more fights. Gonna build more gateways. Here comes, I think, a little bit of an overflood of things getting produced. We have a forge and then a total of 7 gateways. I personally think that if Hasuobs had been macroing better, he would be able to get away with 6 gateways. But I'm not going to focus on that sort of specific. I'm going to instead focus on just the general idea that at every phase in the game, Hasuobs has been doing a pretty darn typical, intuitive thing to do. Again, there's no insane creativity like 2-gate, expand, and now I'm going to go 2-robo and immediately begin churning out Colossi and cut gateway production. Nothing extreme at all. We continue to make gateway units. We'll even see him chrono boosting this armor upgrade. Very cool, Adele Scott styling. Although a lot of Protoss has heard about that before. Adele Scott is the one I'm going to give the fist pump credit to because of his kick-ass games against MVP in the Team Liquid Star League. So here, this little guy might not look noteworthy unless you hit the B button 3 total times. B1, B2, and B3. There we go. Probe. Checking things out. Probe, checking things out. With standard play, there are so many opportunities to attack, typically, that you need to keep an eagle eye on the minimap. You need to be scouting actively. These probes die, and right at the instant these probes end up getting taken out, suddenly Hasuobs begins to move out with the scout probe, trying to just keep that eye on his opponent. So important, so key. And here comes again this essential idea of scouting the front. We have a robo going down, but it's going to be pretty much made only for the sake of an observer. No Colossi getting churned out quite yet. See a Twilight Council going down. This will help in a number of ways, such as with our ground armor. We have some cannons going down. Now, this is a little bit of a reaction-y type play in a lot of circumstances. Not necessarily this one. Not necessarily this one. But anytime you build a defensive structure, that's a very typical way of responding to what you think your opponent is doing, or you have some fear of X coming to attack you, so you want to just get that in advance. And what's concerning in a lot of cases is people have this, I need to build too many defenses, and then here is the symptom that manifests whenever you're too much in reaction mode and you're too much in defending and you're too much in, let me make sure I can deal with all the stuff he's doing. You feel like it's rock, paper, scissors. And as you just heard me tweet, this is a game of rock, paper, scissors where the solution is to build a bigger fucking rock. That's the way you want to play. I don't want any of you being like, and what about Lizard and Spock? That does not assist the joke at all. In rock, paper, scissors, Lizard, Spock, you need to build a bigger rock. Guys, doesn't have the same flow. In this game, anytime you're feeling rock, paper, scissory, it means you're not really doing the aggressive techniques that you need to be doing enough. You're not pressuring the opponent. And what I love so much about what we're seeing Hasuobs do is that none of the attacks that Hasuobs has done have been committal. And I'm sure a lot of you are watching Hasuobs play and thinking, that looks pretty damn fun. I get to push out, I get to attack, I get to be in his face and aggressive. You're damn right you do, and if you're playing this game correctly, that's how it'll feel. Yeah. So we're seeing Hasuobs get blink, again, one of his favorite techniques. And we're seeing, again, a little bit of aggressive movement by this probe. And, ooh, look at this great scouting stuff. This is the real art of standard play that no one talks about. Look at him checking the attack paths first. This isn't purely safety-wise. This is an opportunity for Hasuobs to really begin to do some aggressive deviations. The probe, or this observer, was actually told to stop and hold on for a little bit while he moved out. There now is the level 1 ground armor wrapping up. So we're going to see Hasuobs move out to do a little bit of harassment with the blink. And we're going to see him delve into the main. And look at this amazing observer work. Look at this amazing observer work. He's cutting down into the base after checking this attack path, and once he identifies units are there, there's a second observer coming out. Drewby from Root Gaming used to always joke that StarCraft 2 is a game where Protosses only make one observer, so all you have to do is kill off that observer, and then you win the game with Banshees, right? It was this joke that, although is more funny than anything, is painfully true when you lose that one observer, where you're like, well, I do need to start non-stop Colossus production. Look, give me one observer, that's all we need, and then please hold the rest. Don't quite want to be in that mindset, because then it interrupts your ability to do gentle pressure, one of the hallmarks of good, nice, standard, typical play. This isn't crazy by any means. He's going to be pulling back. Oh no, he will have to run away, and as he sees units beginning to advance, he will just blink up onto the high ground, or will rejoin with his army. And he's doing all this while expanding. How delightful. All the little things. So, again, we see another key lesson. You expand at the same time you attack. Hasuobs, in this case, just move forward with the Blink Stalkers, these Zealots and these Sentries. I can actually ignore a little bit, and just note that the Stalker plus Expand combo happen at the same time. Very, very standard. That is another big standard And notice briefly how I said it as an active decision. As it was an active decision. I said it as an active frickin' decision. This is a real tragedy, again, of trying to get locked into the I will obey the gods of standard practice who have bestowed the build orders upon me, where they say something like, I expand at this food, I also attack at this food. Incidentally, we can see that the expand occurs at the same time as the attack because that is how the gods have constructed it. I don't want you to be in that mindset. I want you to be able to think something to yourself like, when can I get an expansion up? I've been doing my standard play where I've been getting mainly gateway units. I kind of eventually want to get the Colossus. Well, you know what? If I attack right now, that will open up an opportunity for me to expand. This is a strategy game after all. So a good strategy is to pressure and distract so you can establish expansions. Attack and expand at the same time. An active decision that you are making. We are seeing yet another gateway get morphed somewhere here. Alright, cool. Continuing to position a little bit forward. And even I would like to note again the fact that Hasuobs made the 7 gateways and the forge before he got observers out, because again, thanks to the pressuring that he was able to unleash on his opponent, he was in excellent territory to be able to, what was I saying? Oh yeah, he's in excellent territory to know that his opponent had no Banshees, had no Cloak coming. Again, the Observer continuing to poke around. We see a factory chilling off in the corner. We see the Observer continuing to move around. More things that are nice and standard getting upgrades. Except notice again, we can say something like, in our mix, we just want +1. When is a good time to get that? When there's no risk of dying, which is the exact time that Hasuobs got it. We see the advancement forward. Good stuff. Expansion finishes for Hasuobs. More good business about getting cannons up to just deal with any sort of pressure that occurs. We have 1 cannon here. We have 1 cannon here. These are the things that I think, when looking at a game, are kind of easy to pick up. And it's actually good to pick them up. To state the entirely obvious fact, if you're playing in a pretty typical, ordinary, not crazy way, you should probably build some cannons to defend you. Because in general, building cannons to defend workers is a good thing. Because it helps keep the workers alive. I know that's obvious, but I should throw it out there. Because, again, too often players will... they'll want to play standard, but they won't... But they'll ignore some obvious junk, like getting defensive structures. I see a lot of Terrans just, like, expand early and make no bunkers. Like, I can be a boss and hold it. You're not a boss. You can't hold it. Just like to let you know. There's the scan by the little one. And per usual, we're seeing Hasuobs do an increasingly popular transition where he gets 2 robotics facilities after he gets his 3rd and begins to churn out Colossi. Only then, only nice and late. What have the Zealots and Sentries done thus far? Well, they've pretty much done this. Just this little triangle. The Stalkers are the real active units, because they are the faster units. Nothing too crazy, not too much funny business going on here. We do see Hasuobs gearing up to take an expansion in the bottom right. And per usual, look at all the coverage that is going on right now. Now again, I want to note something just by pausing and looking at the map. This is a period where a lot of players just say the following. Herp derp, I'm going to build Colossi till I'm maxed, and then I'll have an army of Stalkers, Zealots and Sentry, and a lot of Colossus, and then I will win because that's a Gosu army. But at any point in time throughout this entire long stretch, Hasuobs has a lot of opportunities to attack. These observers have actually been scooting around just gradually. Like if I back up a little bit, notice that this observer is not on patrol. He's just gently poking up here. Is there anything else? Are there perhaps tanks behind here? Because, man, these Stalkers could maybe do some business where they run up, pick this off, and blink away. We're seeing these depots here. Maybe you want to do some blink pressure here. There's a Zealot and a Stalker here, just kind of preparing. We even have the obvious idea that if Zealots and Marines end up moving here, these can all pinch them off. This is this idea of lots of possibilities that our units are allowing for but that we're just not seeing really churn out into action. One of the biggest curses of someone trying to mirror standard play is that they are not accepting the fact that there are 1,000,001 chances to be aggressive. So hey, look, some harassment pops out. Cool. Hasuobs pulling back. Continuing to do some nice spotting here. Now this spotting, this is great, right? This is good junk. This is your pretty run-of-the-mill, I want to spot drops, I want to spot drops, I want to be spotting drops, or banshees, or anything like that for that matter. But it's these units, all this junk, that I really want to note. Hasuobs makes a little bit of a mistake and brings his entire freaking army back to one location. It happens, don't worry about it. But now we're seeing things recoup. When are these guys recouping? Well, pretty much only as Colossi 3 and 4 are about to pop out, and generally 4 is the money moment. So now we are seeing everything join together. Notice this interesting little fact. This is something that 1,000,001 players will take for granted. It is a normal Colossus ball. Zealots, sentries, stalkers, colossi, blink. Sometimes players don't have that. Charge. A lot of the times players have that. Isn't that normal? Isn't that lovely and normal? How long has it been a ball? 10 seconds, right? The one moment when Hasuobs finally has a Colossus ball is 10 seconds ago. Because before then, these stalkers were all hanging out here, whereas the Zealots and Sentries were hanging out here, ready to force field anything that caught in the way, or even to force field slice in half things and put pressure down here. The Colossi were busy getting constructed, and only when there is a sudden engagement does Hasuobs then collect his forces together to do a straight frontal push. Oopsie daisies, an incredibly good force field. And a little bit of luck, Hasuobs actually, incidentally, didn't lose all the energy on those guys, but still I think that Hasuobs would have been fine. So I think very clearly Hasuobs is on the defensive, but I would like to note one of these standard laws of standardness, and in fact one of the standard laws of StarCraft 2 and all strategy games. You need to be putting pressure on your opponent pretty much always. How is there pressure being put on? Oh, here. There's no expansion here. Here, there's no expansion here. And here, there's no expansion here. Keeping tabs on your opponent's expo count is pretty darn important. Being able to shut those down is extremely darn important. The fact that Hasuobs is doing that is excellent, excellent, excellent news. So, up to this point in time, we've seen Hasuobs do a lot of things that a lot of players don't do, but that no one on the planet would label as unorthodox. And it's those things I want to begin encouraging you to do, because people love giving standard a bad rap, but my goodness, playing as standard can be, Hasuobs has looked like one of the more active, aggressive Protosses out there. And there is a defensive nuke from TLO. And this is, again, a very easy time to begin doing funny business, right? Where you overthink yourself. Where it's so easy to go, oh, well, if he's doing, you know, now I'm going to prepare for a switch to Void Rays, and I'm going to also account for the fact that he might begin getting some of this unit type, so I'm going to swing all the way hard over to here. We're just going to see Hasuobs make a very nice mix of solid gateway units, pushing over to the right side. Great. We're also seeing him add on a bunch of gateways, and this will bring his gateway count very, very high. We have 14 gateways right now. There's a 15th gateway, because, as usual, we like to make absolutely certain that we can handle the production once we hit the max point. There's a technique that a lot of players know about, that a good amount of players do. No reason not to encourage you to do that. This expansion is getting taken out. Now, I want you to notice, again, a little teensy-tiny army split that occurs here. The Blink Stalkers are going to just gently dart down here. Tragically ends up losing that Observer, but just briefly poked down to the Zelnaga Watchtower. Separated the Stalkers from the Zealot-centric Colossus force, just so he could be able to do a little bit of work here on these structures. This is a very uncomfortable spot right now. Why is this uncomfortable in terms of army positioning? Because the entire army is here, and look at the map, everything else is on the right or north side of the map. There's even an expansion going down on the right side. Uh-oh, a ferocious onslaught of SCVs. And here comes another part where players end up having a lot of struggles. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment because I'm experiencing pressure in my chest, which I know is not good. Right here in the sternum. Anyone ever, like, cracked their sternum before? I mean, like a knuckle crack. I don't mean like, you know, someone punched you really hard with an iron knuckle on and snapped it. Ouchies. Oh, I would love the idea that the drama is so intense that I just had a heart attack. I was like, oh, he has 4 colossi at a normal standard play. I'm going to wait until my sternum stops hurting incredibly bad. Ugh. I'm actually going to lean way back in my chair, and hopefully this will remedy the situation. I'm going to ease up on that pressure. So we are also seeing 2 forges come down. Again, typical things to do when maxed. And we see, again, a defensive nuke strike. This is a very sort of cool thing. But what I love that we're going to see Hasuobs do for a lot of the game is he's going to have a very active army, but he is just going to keep it together. He's not going to get distracted. He's not going to inadvertently get little segments lost. Again, notice the little jukes, having the stalkers turn around to do a little bit of attacking stuff. Now having everything back up, just gently avoiding that little red dot. Always important to avoid that. And here comes another nice bit of thinking by Hasuobs. What we're going to see in a moment here is that cannons are going to go down on this high ground. And this is a very nice spot to be in. Why attack here? Because per usual, it defends the expansion on our right side. We're expanding here simply because we have the money to. This is very, very poorly defended expansion. Very, very, very poorly defended. We're going to see Hasuobs do the usual set of good decisions and just try to advance through here. The blink helps. But I mean, how many of you... Cannon rush. How many of you do this sort of thing? How many of you late game as Protoss have, you know, a pylon here? And a pylon over here? And another pylon up here? I mean, people as Zerg, you know, you'll see Zergs who are good about their creep spread, who will spread it all the way back along here and kind of send it there. I mean, a lot of Zerg players are good at this idea of just get the creep wherever the hell you can. A lot of Protosses are not. And you should be, because my god, it's easy to build a pylon, and it helps make your standard play a style of decision-making, where you can actively say, okay, I want to warp in units. Ooh, I can actually warp them way the hell in over there. You don't have to do anything nuts. You don't have to get any warp prisms and worry about any positioning. Hell, Hasuobs is maxed, so yeah, why wouldn't he end up putting pressure here? Puts pressure on here, right as he's putting pressure on over here. And we're even seeing tanks from TLO, a little bit unusual. There's actually been Blue Flame Hellions research. We're seeing nukes. Hasuobs is just doing everything very ordinarily. Again, trying to avoid these little red dots. And yeah, look at the coverage down here, warping things in here. These Zealots could actually be rallied over here to do a good amount of damage. Great stuff. Glorious attacking, aggressioning. Looks like we see the Terran is a little bit mined out. Now, upon seeing this mined out as Protoss, I would literally completely stop attacking. Because if my opponent's income is just not at all, like, I guess there's some stuff here, but I mean, if my opponent's income is just not going, I see no reason to try to win the game just like outright. And these are, again, this is a replacement High Templar. Pre-patch, you could just warp in High Templar and storm your way into victory all over the place. But you know what? DT is still a very strong unit. So how is Hasuobs going to respond to this? Nothing extreme. I don't want to call it nothing out of the ordinary, because I've used that a lot, but I want to note that this is very not extreme. We're just seeing him hold on with his probes for a little bit of time. Send units to be able to kill this off. Not a few units, he's actually just bringing the whole damn army there. And then he's going to gently return back to mining. I would say the most Hasuobs is going to do here is build one pylon. Because there's a funny thing that happens where a lot of people will defend the place that just got attacked and will not be attacked anymore ever again. Where they'll get Hellion dropped, they'll lose all their probes and think, man, I better now rush to build 3 cannons because I don't want Blue Flame Hellion drops to hurt me. Well, you can do that next game, but this game you're already dead. You know, like, It is so funny how often that happens. Like, right as something stops being a threat, better make the defense to deal with that threat. That's just something you shouldn't do. That has nothing to do with standard. You can be the most unorthodox player in the universe. Just don't do that. And again, we're seeing Hasuobs' entire army stick very, very close together. We've seen more sentries continue to get constructed in the late game. Good active decision-making in terms of the mix that he wants to be choosing. Very nice force fielding, not shy about repositioning himself. You see a little bit of control going on there, but most importantly, not shy in the slightest about retreating. Trying to poke around here, a little bit of a spread. Yep, and look at this. Right when everything was doing huge damage to him right here in this battle, I want to trace the lifetime of these Stalkers a little bit. As we see, there was a big battle going on. If you just look at the mini-map, this is a real sign of, like, a fucking hero player. This is just great. Okay, so see here, there's the battle. There's the blink back of the Stalkers on the mini-map that we see. And right as that Terran army seems like it could be a threat, right as this Terran army is beginning to be like, oh my gosh, what if this attacks me right now and I lose? That's when Hasuobs immediately is like, oh yeah, and can these Stalkers do anything? That means he was keeping an eye on this expansion. Briefly poking around with them. Doesn't look like extraordinarily much, but you know what? Putting pressure back on the opponent, first by checking here, but then by just trying to poke here as well. Army from Hasuobs still stays very, very tight and close together. Do not like that Colossus getting a little bit overeager. Have to be slightly more careful about that. I mean, other than that, I mean, this army is just so beautifully united. And you know, this may have looked like a somewhat hectic end of game. This may have looked a little bit hectic, but we know that the Terran is not mining, so we know that the Terran is going to be having to do some sort of all-in-y business. And there are the EMPs, which of course is great because Archons are pretty darn good against EMPs now. They hit Array. That actually makes my life a lot easier because I like Archons a lot more than I like Colossi. Because I'm weird. Man, oh man, oh man, how he kept that army so close together. Using the Stalkers for a long time to be completely separate, and now using the Stalkers to just be a little bit separate. Just drifting gently away from the rest of the army. Good fallback techniques. Warping in Zealots and Dirk Templar. And already we're seeing the grip starting to slip from TLO because thanks to these two guys, we still know there's nothing here. We still know there's nothing here. And I would honestly say that with all this going on, this was one of the most important parts, and this was one of the most important parts. Just keeping an eye on those things. Pound GG, you can find TLO losing this game on Twitter. LOLs, hashtag humor. But what I love so much about that game from Hasuobs is, especially in the opening stages, we saw so much activity on his part. We saw so much moving out and poking and very clever force field placement-ing. And then as he was getting more expansions, we saw the usual tech patterns, but the order that he got him in, pretty revealing of him using information. We saw all the Blink Stalkers and the Zealots in position, ready to take advantage of any opportunity that arose. Incidentally, none really did, but still ready to take care of that opportunity. Really, really ready to take care of that opportunity. Or to take advantage of that opportunity. And then, for the remainder of the game, just keeping his army very tightly packed together, not getting too overeager, and splitting his army up or getting disorganized, and always keeping an eye on those expansions. Just a brilliant display of typicality. And like that is standard play. And too often people again go, what do the orthodox gods bestow upon us? Use this build order. And they just obey, obey, obey. And whenever someone says, well, it seems like there's a weakness here, it's, don't play non-standard, play standard, dude. The thought process is poisonous. Most always, the most standard of plays have some of the most aggressive underpinnings, like lots of gateway units, lots of Marines and Marauders, units that can be very, very aggressive and counter-aggressive. The one thing that I did want to say is a big theme that I mentioned was, despite the fact that TLO was going tanks and Blue Flame Hellions and Marauders and Medivacs and Vikings and Ghosts with defensive nuke, still Hasuobs stuck to a core army of Zealots, Stalker, Colossi, with a couple of sentries and eventual Templar. Really simple. Gateway units plus Colossi and eventually Templar. And people would love to be like, oh, Zomga, it's just huge imbalance because Protoss can just make a small number of units and beat a big number of units. You can use that argument for any race. That's not a real argument. Oh, Terran is only making Marines and Marauders and beating me despite the fact that I'm going DT Zealot, Stalker, Sentry, Immortal, Colossus, Void Ray. Right? It's still beating me. In general, a lot of those seemingly bad mixes that are just like 3 to 4 units are really hard styles to play and rely heavily on really well-timed aggression and taking advantage of a lot of opportunities. Again, there's that whole idea of just because I only see Marine, Marauder, Medevac, and that's it, doesn't mean that there weren't times when he said, okay, now's the time when I could get a factory if he's doing X. Is he doing that? No. Okay, so no factory. Now here's where I might want to make a Ghost Academy. Are you doing that? Nope, don't have to get a Ghost Academy. Okay, now here's a time when I might want to do a huge switch to mech based upon him doing this or that. And then again, still none of that, so it just looks like Marine Marauder all game long. I want you to start thinking of standard play more as an action style, where you're doing things to your opponent and making clear decisions, and when even things are not moving, you have decided to make them not move as opposed to forgotten about them like a little lulzy nubsy. Let us, ouch. Let us worry about the pain in my sternum. Let us, oh, yeah. Yeah, by the way, I said this completely wrong, and it's like I said it, and I was like, yeah, and then I recalled later, and now people are saying it. The EMP only does 100 damage to shield, and the change was that it sucks out 100 mana now, that it sucks out 100 mana. So that way it's not a complete mana, and for some reason my brain flubbed out when thinking about Archons, but you know what, I'm happy to be made of flubber. Speaking of flubber, I have to finish my thesis tonight and then submit it to the graduate school, so I bought myself a cheese-filled coffee cake. Ha 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 ha. It's like a pound of fat. I'm probably only going to eat like a third of it, and I'll leave it out, and Kevin will demolish it. Yeah, yeah. Eternal Skies says, Dear Day 9, in one daily you said that it was okay, quote, to do something good without knowing why it's good. How does this relate to the idea of this daily? That is absolutely something I also advocate. I would like to once again note a really important underlying idea is that I in the daily am trying to give you tools that you can use to apply in situations for yourself. And one of those tools that I said was, if you're feeling really lost, it is absolutely okay to just blindly copy what someone does without knowing why and let the discovery process happen later. So, for instance, if I downloaded a game of Huck and he attacks at 8 minutes, I'm just going to say to myself, I guess I better just attack at 8 minutes. Yeah, and you might lose horribly and other things, but you have a benchmark to start with, instead of beginning with nothing and trying to reach through the murky waters of StarCraft II strategy and hope to just stumble upon a timing. You can just copy it, right? You can just completely and totally copy it. This daily is an extension of that same idea that doesn't want you to get into the mode of, if I'm not just copying, then I'm doing something wrong, right? For instance, let's say we looked at that game from Huck. He attacked at the 8-minute mark. We have no idea what we're doing, and we start copying it, and it begins working. And it begins working, and oh my gosh, you're having success. But then all of a sudden, it stops working. You're winning sometimes, but sometimes you're losing really badly. What do? The correct thing to do is to apply the thoughts that are in this game, where we can say, I am being too much of a reaction player, and I perhaps am copying a little too much, and I'm trying to obey these rules, like attack at the 8-minute mark. There's no rule in StarCraft that says attack at the 8-minute mark. It's just a timing that might work out sometimes. So what's important to do is to try to think a little more actively, to say something like, okay, I am attacking at 8 minutes, not because I'm copying from Huck, and that's the end of it. I'm attacking at the 8-minute mark because of X. And then I am not attacking at the 8-minute mark because of Y. And all of a sudden, I'm beginning to use a lot of active thoughts in order to do things. So it's really, 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 really super duperly important that anytime you're feeling restricted, where you're having that feeling of, oh gosh, but Huck attacked at 8 minutes, I'm doing it, it's not working, I can't attack at the 9-minute mark because I already lost all my stuff from the 8-minute mark, what do I do? Feel free to begin making more active decisions, especially with these standard types of plays where you have the units to be able to do that. So Cyrogenic21 says, hey Thoughthammer, I am usually a reactionary player who balls then attacks. How should I transition into being more aggressive? The only reason I'm pausing is because the use of the word aggression. I less want you to look at this and to say, oh yeah, this is a daily that says I should be aggressive. I want it to be that anytime your units are sitting still, you've decided not to do them. Or decided not to attack with them. Idra is actually an example of a player who has a number of styles that are insanely good reaction-based plays, where he's saying, okay, I'm not going to attack now, 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 and whomp, I attack, done! Or a lot of those Colossus Void Ray-ing players who, you know, as much as they would love to be only attacking when maxed, sometimes they're forced out of it and that sort of thing. What I would say is that a way that you can incorporate more active thinking is just to start putting some times in the ground. Where, like, let's say you react and then you move out at the 15-minute mark. Always. That's like the way that you play. Say something like at the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-minute mark, like in one of your replays, pick a whole bunch of points in time and say, I have these units. Is it okay for them to be sitting here? And I don't just mean in the game, I mean in your own replays, you know, where you might realize something, you know, like let me just pull back to the start of this game. Let me go, let me remove my overlay. I'm going to pull back pretty early to the 6-minute mark. This is right when this push was happening. Now, if Hasuobs, for instance, had no idea about when he could attack or not, he might do something like this. He might say, okay, well, at the 6-minute mark, should all these gateway units be sitting at home defending this? Well, hell, he has 2 Marauders and 2 Marines. Yeah, of course. In this game, Hasuobs did attack, but what if Hasuobs was just sitting on his ass with all these units? Which is something I see a lot of players do. They're just sitting on their ass, and they have a bigger army. And they never rewatch the replay and say, could I have attacked there? Just do that. Just starting right when your workday finishes. At the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14-minute mark, say, could I have attacked? Yes or no? And I think you'll be surprised to find that every now and again there's a couple of yeses. And then I want you to begin making those into active decisions in-game. So in-game, you're like, 6 minutes. Should I attack based on these reasons? No. 7 minutes. In-game. Should I attack based on these reasons? No. And then all of a sudden, 11 minutes. Should I attack? Incidentally, yes. Make them decisions. Do 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 do. Bum ba da ba 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 da bum. Do 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 do. Bum 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 ba dum bum. Do do dum 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 ba dum dum. Da 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 da. Yeah. Oh, here's a great question by NobiBob1. Dear Day 9, I never know which of my replays I should analyze after playing. What should I look for while playing that says I should probably watch the replay? I actually watch almost all my replays, like almost all of them. Let me actually begin by saying when I don't rewatch a lot of replays. A lot of times when I'm trying to smooth out builds, like, you know, if I'm trying to really get an early expand down, and then as it turns out, I have like 6 gateways idle and unable to build anything for a full minute, and I'm like, whoops, I sure effed that up. Let me fix that next game, and then I'll play again. I won't rewatch that replay, because what is there to watch? I already know I built 6 gateways too early. Rewatching the replay will not reveal anything new about my economy. Unless I'm trying to study really hard, but it's probably better for me to just replay through it. And in fact, a lot of those games are games I'm playing against the computer, where I'm just like going again and again and again and again and again. So the way that I actually rewatch my games is actually, let me back up a little bit. So yeah, if you're lower level, you probably don't need to rewatch that many of your games because there's probably so much about the economy and probes and pylons type logic that you can be working on. Like, oh man, my macro's still too freaking high. I'm just going to keep playing. I'm going to keep macroing. But generally what I do when I rewatch my games is I'll play 3, 4, 5 games, and then I'll stop and I'll watch all those. Or if I'm really in the zone, I'll play 10 games, but generally no more than that because I really want to stop and rewatch all those games. I want at least one break in there. Here are the things that I look for. Let me see if I can make a list. I'm sure that there are 3 things I look for in a replay. I love lists of 3s, so I'm just going to pick 3 things. The first one I always look for is to benchmark my feelings in the game, which a lot of times people will call reads, but I still call them feelings because, like, because I'm a very sensitive person. You know, because I like the idea of something like, I felt scared here. And then I rewatch the replay. Should I have felt scared? Or, man, I felt like I was ahead. I was feeling great. And then I look, and it's actually a nail-bitingly close game. Like, these are things I look for. I check the reality versus my fear. Another thing I like to check is timings. Like, he went for that build. Oh, I've never played against a player who goes 3 Rax Marine, 2 Factory, Blue Flame Hellion. I wonder what the timings are like on that. And then I rewatch through it. And then something else I do, there's a third thing, I'm sure there's a third thing that I do. I look for adjustments that I could have made and try to create little scenarios and, not scenarios, create, what the hell's the word? Not extrapolation. No, maybe that is. I try to extrapolate my fantasy position, you know, where I'd say something like, if I didn't build that gateway and instead built that nexus, then I guess I'd have 4 fewer zealots here. So could I held that attack off? Maybe. I try to do a lot of that sort of playing around. The big thing is in all my losses, I try to note the moment where all of a sudden the game was lost. The first moment where I was totally effed. Because it's so easy to, like, you know, at the 10-minute mark, you lost 80 drones. But it was an hour-long game because your opponent was awful. From minutes 10 to 60, I don't give a shit. I don't even analyze that much the mistakes. But at the 10-minute mark, I want to figure out how to not lose those 80 drones, that sort of thing. It looks like we've been going for a little over an hour. Gosh, keep going so long. I'm going to be doing one more question. One more question. Sir, the guy, dear Day 9, with the recent 1.3 patch, do you think the change in Kadar and Amulet will dramatically change the PvT matchup? I think it changes the PvT theory crafting a lot, because people are not implementing aggression at all. And it makes me ragey. Except for QXC, that guy's a fucking man. But Marines and Marauders, so fast. So fast! Why do people not poke? Why do they not just check over here, try to poke? Because I'll get force fielded. We'll lead with 1 Marine, you dip nibnard. Right? Do that sort of thing. So the fact that Kadar and Amulet doesn't exist means that you can begin doing drops, you can begin doing harassment and pressure, and really start to peel that huge Protoss army ball apart. You can peel it apart! Or that's going to end the daily. I will not be doing a daily tomorrow, but I will be doing MLG casting. So starting on Friday, as well as Saturday and Sunday, tune in to watch me and JP and DJ Wheat, 2 of my favorite people in the world, casting StarCraft 2. MLGpro.com, MLGpro.com. Go to that site and watch it all weekend long, starting on Friday. So many Gosu players, including some great buddies of mine. And you know who you are. It's going to end the daily. Submit the Fun Day Monday replay to Monday at day9.tv. In that, you may only ever have 2 gateways constructed at any given point in time, whether they be Warp Gate or regular gateway. Only 2, only 2. Want to see a lot of Robo, a lot of Stargate. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.